In today's world, the internet and computers are commonplace, with most households owning at least one device. However, a few decades ago, computers were a rarity, owned by a small fraction of the population. The 1980s saw the beginning of a digital revolution, where having a personal computer was a novelty. It was during this period that Jonathan James' story unfolded, a story that ultimately became a cautionary tale of how a passion for technology can turn into a dangerous obsession. Early years and growing interest. Jonathan James was born on December 12, 1983, in South Florida, to Robert James and Ginger Esther. His father was a computer programmer, and young Jonathan quickly became fascinated with the family's home computer. By the age of 6, he was spending countless hours playing games, an activity that was unusual for children at that time. Unlike today, where such behavior might be seen as normal, this level of engagement with technology was rare and worrisome. As Jonathan grew older, his curiosity about computers deepened. What began as an interest in gaming evolved into a desire to understand the inner workings of the machine. His parents, concerned about the amount of time he was spending on the computer, tried to limit his usage. However, these restrictions only served as challenges for Jonathan to overcome. Further fueling his obsession, he taught himself to bypass parental controls, becoming more and more engrossed in the world of programming. Early hacking and first signs of trouble. By the time Jonathan was a teenager, his knowledge of computers had far surpassed that of his peers. He moved beyond playing games to learning programming languages and even experimenting with different operating systems. His father recalled coming home to find that Jonathan had completely replaced the Windows operating system on their computer with Linux, purely out of curiosity. Jonathan's hacking activities started small, with pranks and minor intrusions, but his skills quickly advanced. At around 13 years old, his parents, alarmed by his growing obsession, took away his computer. Jonathan's response was to run away from home, insisting that he would return only if his computer was given back. This incident highlighted the deep hold that technology had on him, a sign of the addiction that was taking root. The start of serious hacking. Jonathan's hacking escalated during 1999, when he was just 15 years old. His exploits went far beyond harmless pranks. He began targeting significant organizations. One of his earliest major intrusions was into Bell South Telecommunications, a large telecom company. Despite the scale of this breach, it went unnoticed by the company until Jonathan himself confessed to it later. However, this was only a prelude to the more serious offenses he would commit. Later that year, Jonathan, using the alias C0raid, broke into a NASA server located in Huntsville, Alabama. This was no ordinary server. It was part of the Marshall Space Flight Center, which was involved in critical space exploration and communications for the International Space Station. Jonathan planted malware on the server, allowing him to control 13 other computers within the network. His actions resulted in the theft of data worth approximately $1.7 million, including the source code for software that controlled life-sustaining elements on the space station. The breach forced NASA to shut down its systems for 21 days, costing them thousands of dollars to repair the damage. Escalating to national security breaches. Emboldened by his success, Jonathan continued his hacking spree. He next targeted a server in Dulles, Virginia, where he installed a backdoor to gain continuous access. Unbeknownst to him at the time, this server belonged to the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, DTRA, a subsidiary of the U.S. Department of Defense, responsible for monitoring and responding to threats against national security. Through this backdoor, Jonathan was able to intercept sensitive communications, including messages between Pentagon employees and other classified information. This breach was significant enough to attract the attention of federal authorities. On January 26, 2000, at the age of 16, Jonathan's home was raided by Department of Defense agents. They confiscated multiple computers and electronic devices, effectively cutting off his access to the digital world. Jonathan was arrested and charged with 2 counts of juvenile delinquency, one for the NASA breach and one for the DTRA intrusion. Legal consequences and the impact on Jonathan. Jonathan's case was unprecedented. He was the first minor to be prosecuted for cybercrimes of such magnitude. Initially sentenced to 6 months in juvenile detention, His punishment was later reduced to 6 months of house arrest, during which he was banned from using computers except for educational purposes. He was also required to write apology letters to NASA and the Department of Defense, and to assist them in understanding how he had breached their systems. The leniency of his sentence reflected his age and the fact that he had not caused any physical harm. However, the experience of being arrested, tried, and incarcerated left a deep psychological impact on Jonathan. He became depressed, withdrawn, and increasingly paranoid, fearing that he was under constant surveillance. The stress was compounded by the loss of his mother to breast cancer shortly after his release from detention. The tragic end. After his release, Jonathan tried to stay out of the spotlight, avoiding any activities that could draw attention to his past. However, his life took another dark turn in 2007, when the Secret Service began investigating a massive data breach at TJX, a major retail company. Millions of customers' credit card details had been stolen, and the investigation led authorities to a group of hackers with whom Jonathan had once been associated. Although Jonathan denied any involvement in the TJX hack, federal agents raided his home again in 2008, suspecting him of being part of the conspiracy. They found no evidence linking him to the crime. Jonathan James's death in early 2011 came as a tragic end to a life marked by both brilliance and turmoil. Authorities found him in his home with a gunshot wound to the head, a nearby suicide note pointing to various people and issues that had weighed heavily on his mind. The note hinted at frustrations with the legal system and accusations that had been leveled against him. This discovery immediately fueled speculation, particularly about whether his death was connected to his alleged involvement in the TJX hack, a major cybercrime incident, or the sensitive information he had accessed from NASA and the Department of Defense. The circumstances of his death raised more questions than answers, leaving those who knew him to wonder about the true factors that led to his untimely demise. Jonathan's story is a complex narrative that intertwines his prodigious talent in computer hacking with the legal challenges he faced from a young age. He had gained notoriety as a teenager for his hacking activities, which eventually caught the attention of law enforcement. His early criminal record, which included hacking into NASA and the Department of Defense, set the stage for a life filled with both admiration and scrutiny. Some viewed him as a cautionary example of the dangers of unchecked curiosity and technical skill, while others saw him as a victim of a legal system that struggled to adequately address the nuances of cybercrime committed by minors. This duality in perception of his life underscores the broader societal struggle to reconcile the potential for rehabilitation with the need for accountability. The legal challenges that Jonathan faced were significant, and they had a lasting impact on his life. After his initial arrest and conviction, he was placed under probation, which restricted his freedom and opportunities. The consequences of his actions as a teenager followed him into adulthood, creating a sense of isolation and despair that may have contributed to his decision to end his life. The severity of the punishment he received as a minor has been a point of debate, with some arguing that the legal system was too harsh, while others believe that the consequences were appropriate given the seriousness of his crimes. Regardless of where one stands on this issue, it is clear that Jonathan's early encounters with the law had a profound effect on his mental and emotional well-being. The case of Jonathan James also highlights the challenges of dealing with cybercrime, particularly when the perpetrators are young. Cybercrime presents unique difficulties for the legal system, as it often involves complex technical issues and the crossing of international boundaries. The anonymity and reach of the internet can blur the lines between criminal activity and harmless exploration, making it difficult to determine intent and appropriate punishment. Jonathan's story illustrates how the legal system can struggle to keep pace with the rapidly evolving landscape of technology and cybercrime, particularly when it involves young offenders who may not fully grasp the consequences of their actions. Additionally, Jonathan's story serves as a stark reminder of the psychological and emotional toll that legal and personal struggles can take on an individual. His suicide note suggests that he felt deeply betrayed and frustrated by the people and systems around him, hinting at a sense of hopelessness that may have stemmed from his prolonged legal battles and the stigma of his criminal record. This aspect of his story raises important questions about the mental health support available to those who find themselves entangled in the legal system. particularly young people who may be more vulnerable to the pressures and stresses of such situations. In the end, Jonathan James's life and death remain a poignant example of the complexities surrounding cybercrime, legal accountability, and the personal toll of navigating these challenges. His story is a reminder of the importance of balancing justice with compassion, particularly when dealing with young offenders who have made mistakes, but also have the potential for redemption. It also underscores the need for society to address the root causes of cybercrime, such as addiction and obsession with technology, and to provide support for those who may be struggling with these issues. Jonathan's life, though tragically cut short, continues to resonate as a cautionary tale about the far-reaching consequences of cybercrime and the profound impact it can have on individuals and their communities.